Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. It is January 16th, 2026. I'm your host speaker, and honestly, I am thrilled you're here with us today.
It's great to be here.
We have a topic on the table that, I'll be honest, it kept me up a little bit last night. Not because it's scary, though, maybe a little,
Hmm.
but because it's just so, well, fundamentally human.
Mm-hmm.
I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host. How are we feeling about today's stack of research?
I am doing well, thanks. And I really share that feeling. Looking at the sources we've pulled together, articles, legislative bills, these deep scientific breakdowns, we're in for a fascinating discussion.
It feels that way.
Yeah, this isn't just about technology or industry. It's about a massive cultural shift. It's about how we, as a species, deal with the inevitable.
Absolutely. We cover a lot of tech and science on this show, AI, biotech, climate solutions, but today feels different. We are not just scratching the surface, we're going all the way down.
All the way.
We're talking about the end, the final chapter. Specifically, we're looking at the rapidly changing world of death care. We're talking about the rise of so-called green death technologies.
That's right. And to frame this for you, the listener,
Yeah.
the learner, we really need to acknowledge exactly where we are in time. It is coming 26.
Right.
If you look back at the last century, for the better part of 100 years, if you lived in the West, you really only had two options when you died. It was a binary choice.
Two doors.
Two doors. You were either buried in a box in the ground or you were burned to ash. It was fire or earth.
Fire or earth. It sounds so elemental when you put it that way. But today, right now, we are seeing a massive structural shift toward two new elements. They're
Exactly.
moving from fire and earth to water and biology.
It's a huge shift. We're witnessing the industrialization of two new methods, alkaline hydrolysis, which you'll hear called aquamation, and natural organic reduction, which most people know simply as human composting.
And our mission today is pretty specific. We aren't just going to say, hey, these exist. We're going to unpack it all. The science, the economics, the environmental impact, and, the profound cultural questions raised by these methods.
Right.
We want to understand the mechanics of how you actually dissolve or compost human remains.
And I want to set the tone right now.
Yeah.
We are going to be exhaustive.
Yeah.
We aren't going to skip the details that might make people, a little uncomfortable. We're going to take a deliberate, slow pace to truly understand these processes.
We have to.
Because if you're listening to this, chances are you or someone you know is going to have to make this choice eventually.
So let's start with the status quo, because to understand why these new technologies are gaining so much traction, and they really are, we have to understand what's wrong with the old way.
Yes,
You found some really staggering numbers regarding traditional burial in our source material.
I did. And staggering is absolutely the right word. We have this romanticized idea of a traditional cemetery. We think of a green, peaceful park, maybe some birds chirping.
The quiet resting place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But environmentally speaking, that just isn't the reality. Stephanie Burris, writing for Inside Climate News, describes them as tiny landfills.
Tiny landfills. Wow. That is such a visceral image. It completely flips the script on what a cemetery is.
It does, but the data supports it. If you look at the United States, just annually, traditional burial is a heavy industrial act.
How heavy?
We enter approximately 20 million board feet of hardwood every single year.
Let's just pause on that. 20 million board feet. What does that even look like?
That is enough wood to build thousands of single-family homes, and we're just putting it in the ground to rot.
Okay, so there's the wood for the caskets. What else?
Not just the wood. We also bury 1.6 million tons of reinforced concrete.
For the burial vaults.
For the vaults, yes. And that's just there to keep the ground flat so the lawnmowers can, drive over it easily.
So it's not even for the body, really. It's for groundskeeping.
In essence, yes. It prevents the grave from sinking. So you're burying forests and you're burying concrete. But perhaps most concerningly from a toxicology standpoint, we bury about 4.3 million gallons of embalming fluid.
Okay, let's unpack that embalming fluid. This isn't just some harmless vinegar or saline solution, right? This is serious stuff.
Oh, far from it. The primary active ingredient is formaldehyde.
A known carcinogen.
A known carcinogen,
Yeah.
absolutely. The Modern Mortician and Inside Climate News both highlight the health risks here. And it's not just about what seeps into the soil over decades. It's about the people working in the industry right now.
The funeral directors. The embalmers.
Exactly. Long-term exposure to formaldehyde has been linked to significantly higher risks of ALS, brain cancer, and Alzheimer's disease in funeral workers.
So you're literally working with a toxin designed to stop biological processes, and you're breathing it in day after day.
That's the reality of it.
So you have this toxic legacy in the ground. And I think for a long time, people sort of realized this. They thought, okay, well, that's why I'll choose cremation. Cremation is the eco-friendly option.
Right, the clean option.
Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners probably assume cremation is the green choice. But that's a bit of a myth too, isn't it?
It is a very complicated picture.
Ugh.
Yes, cremation saves land. You aren't taking up a plot forever. That's a huge benefit. But fire cremation is an industrial combustion process.
We're talking about a furnace.
A furnace, a retort. You are essentially incinerating a body at temperatures between 1,400 and 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
2,000 degrees, that is just incredibly hot.
It has to be to reduce bone and tissue to ash, and you have to maintain that intense heat for 2 to 3 hours per body.
That sounds incredibly energy intensive.
It is. The carbon footprint of a single fire cremation is roughly equivalent to driving a car over 500 miles.
Wow. For one person.
For one person.
Mm.
When you aggregate that, fire cremations in the U.S. release carbon dioxide equivalent to driving 1 billion miles annually.
1 billion miles? That's staggering. That really puts it into perspective.
And that's just the carbon. We also have to talk about what else goes up the smokestack. Specifically, mercury.
Mercury? Wait, where is the mercury coming from?
It's from our teeth.
Dental fillings?
Dental fillings.
Mm.
A lot of people, especially older generations, have those silver amalgam fillings.
Sure.
Well, those contain a significant amount of mercury. So when you incinerate a body at 2,000 degrees, those fillings vaporize. That mercury gas goes right up the stack and into the atmosphere.
And I assume modern crematories have filters for that.
They do, but it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's a known contributor to atmospheric mercury levels.
So earth is toxic to the worker and the brown. Fire is toxic to the air. But there was another point in the research that really surprised me. We're running out of room, but not in the way people think. It's not a land issue. It's a machine issue.
Correct. It's a bottleneck. It's a logistics problem. The National Funeral Directors Association projects that by 2045, over 82.3% of U.S. deaths will involve cremation.
82%. That is a massive, massive shift from 50 years ago.
It's a sea change, but the number of crematories, the actual physical machines, is only growing at about 5.2% a year.
So the demand is just skyrocketing, but the infrastructure isn't there to meet it.
Exactly. We simply will not have the machinery to process the volume of bodies using fire. We are facing a bottleneck in death care. We need alternatives, not just for the planet, but for pure logistics.
So the system is at its breaking point.
It really is. We need a way to process remains that is faster than burial, but cleaner than fire.
Okay, so that sets the stage perfectly.
Yeah.
The traditional methods are toxic, energy-heavy, or just logically maxed out. Enter the alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the water option. Alkaline hydrolysis. I've heard it called so many things. Aquamation, water cremation, resumation, biocremation, flameless cremation.
It has a branding problem, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a classic issue with new tech. It's trying to find a name that doesn't sound too, scientific, but also doesn't sound too scary.
Right. But let's stick with aquamation or alkaline hydrolysis for today. What are we actually talking about here? Is this brand new, cutting-edge 2026 technology?
Here is a fun bit of trivia to start. This isn't new tech at all.
Oh.
It was actually patented way back in 1888 by a man named Amos Herbert Hansen.
1888. So this is Victorian technology.
Originally, yes. But he wasn't trying to revolutionize funerals. He was a farmer. He was trying to figure out a better way to process animal carcasses into fertilizer.
So it was agricultural tech.
Completely. He wanted a way to break down organic matter quickly to get the nutrients back into the soil. It wasn't used for humans until 1993 at Albany Medical College, and even then, it was strictly for cadavers that had been donated to science.
So it's only in the last decade or so that it's crossed over to the general public.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics. I'm the learner. I've chosen aquamation. What happens? Walk me through the machine. I want to visualize this.
So imagine a large stainless steel cylinder. It looks a bit like a high-tech MRI machine, or maybe a very, very large pressure cooker.
Okay.
It's an airtight chamber. The body is placed inside on a kind of tray. Then, the vessel is filled with a solution. Now, this is the critical part. It's a mixture of roughly 95% water and only 5% alkali.
An alkali meaning something like lye.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Usually it's potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. These are strong bases. The machine then gently heats this solution.
How hot are we talking?
The temperature ranges from about 199 degrees Fahrenheit up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the specific system.
Which is significantly lower than the 2,000 degrees of a fire cremation.
Oh, drastically lower.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's a liquid system, they use pressure up to 10 bar, which is about 145 psi, to prevent the water from boiling.
Ah, okay.
And this combination of heat, pressure, and alkalinity kickstarts a chemical process called hydrolysis.
Hydrolysis. Let's unpack that term. What is actually happening to the body at a chemical level?
In simplest terms, hydrolysis just means breaking chemical bonds using water. But more specifically, what's happening here is a process called saponification. The alkali attacks the fats and proteins in the body, breaking them down into salts and, well, soaps.
Soaps.
Yes, it is, chemically speaking, very similar to how traditional soap is made from fat and lye.
That is a vivid image.
It is. But it's also important to remember this is a natural process. This machine is just accelerating natural decomposition. What nature takes decades to do in the soil, breaking down all the soft tissue this machine does in just a few hours.
How many hours are we talking?
It really depends on the pressure. If you use a high-pressure system, it's remarkably fast, maybe 3 to 4 hours.
That's comparable to fire cremation.
Exactly. If you use a lower temperature, non-pressurized system, it takes longer, maybe 14 to 16 hours.
Okay, this is the part where people usually get a little squeamish. The process finishes, the door opens. What is left? What do you see?
You have two outputs. First, you have the bones, but they aren't like the charred, brittle gray bones you get from a fire cremation. These are pure white. The sources call them bone shadows.
Bone shadows. That sounds almost poetic.
It is. They are made of pure calcium phosphate. And interestingly, you get about 20% to 32% more bone material back than with fire.
More? Why?
Because fire is so destructive, it actually vaporizes some of the bone density and structure. Aquamation is much gentler. It leaves the mineral structure of the skeleton perfectly intact.
So the family actually gets more ashes back in the urn.
Exactly. These bones are soft and porous enough to be easily crushed into a fine white powder, which is returned to the family, just like traditional ashes.
Yeah.
But then there's the second output, the liquid.
Right.
Right.
The sterile light brown liquid that was mentioned in the sources.
Yes, and this is where the public perception battle often lies. This liquid contains all the building blocks of life: amino acids, peptides, sugars, salts. It is completely sterile.
No DNA.
No DNA. The process completely destroys it. It is essentially a nutrient soup.
And what happens to it? Where does this soup go?
In most cases, the pH is neutralized. They bring it down from its highly alkaline state to about 11, and then it's simply sent to the municipal wastewater treatment plant.
It goes down the drain.
It does. It enters the water cycle. However, and this is a really interesting development, because it is so nutrient-rich, some providers are actually capturing this liquid. They're using it as a fertilizer or a biostimulant for non-edible gardens or farmland.
So you're returning the nutrients to the earth immediately.
Exactly.
That brings up another point. We are increasingly, part machine. Many of us have titanium hips, pacemakers, screws, dental implants. What happens to those?
That's one of the huge advantages of aquamation. In fire cremation, a pacemaker is a real danger. It can actually explode in the heat.
So it has to be surgically removed beforehand.
It does. But in aquamation, the titanium hips, the dental implants, the pacemakers, they all come out perfectly clean and intact. They look like they just came out of the sterile package. They can be easily collected and recycled.
That is fascinating. So essentially, you are gently washing the body away until only the mineral structure and the inorganic implants remain.
Precisely, from fire and earth to water. It's a reductive process, but a gentle one.
Okay, let's pivot to the second technology, the biology option. Natural organic reduction or human composting. This feels like a completely different philosophy.
It really is.
Aquamation is chemistry. This is ecology.
It is. While aquamation uses chemical reactions, human composting relies on pure biology. It's often called terramation or soil transformation. The concept here is just to accelerate natural decomposition using microbes. The little guys do all the work.
So no water tanks, no fire chambers. What does the vessel for this look like?
It varies by provider, but they're generally reusable steel vessels. Some look like large drawers in a kind of rack system. Others, like the ones used by some funeral homes in Colorado, are these beautiful hexagonal pods called chrysalis vessels.
Ah, chrysalis.
Yeah, they stack them together to look like a honeycomb. It's very intentional.
That's a lovely image. So how do you turn a human body into soil in a steel box? You can't just toss a body in there and hope for the best, right? What's the recipe?
It really is a recipe. The whole key is creating the perfect environment for microbes to thrive. You layer the body with organic bulking agents.
Meaning what exactly?
We're talking wood chips, alfalfa, straw, and sometimes even wildflowers.
It's almost like building a lasagna.
It's exactly like building a lasagna, a carbon and nitrogen lasagna. The body provides the nitrogen, the wood chips and straw provide the carbon, and getting that ratio right is absolutely crucial for the process to work correctly.
And these microbes, do they add them? Or are they
Check
just
it out.
us?
It's a bit of both, but primarily we are relying on the bacteria that are already in and on us, plus the microbes in the plant material. These are a specific type called thermophilic or heat-loving microbes. As they consume, as they metabolize the body, they generate an incredible amount of heat.
How much heat are we talking about?
A surprisingly high amount. The pile naturally reaches temperatures of over 131 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, regulations require that it holds that temperature for at least 3 consecutive days.
And that's to kill pathogens.
Exactly. It ensures that everything from viruses to bacteria is rendered inert.
That's incredible. The body heats itself up just through bacterial activity. There's no gas burner or heating element involved.
None at all. It is entirely self-generated heat. It's the raw power of metabolism on a massive scale.
How long does this part take? Aquamation was fast. This must be slower.
It is. This is the slow movement of death care. The active phase is usually 30 to 45 days. And during this time, the vessel is very gently rotated, like a giant tumbler, to add oxygen. Aeration is key. You need oxygen for these specific microbes to work efficiently and, importantly, without creating odors.
And after those 45 days, is it done? Is it soil?
Not quite. There's a second step called the curing phase. The material is removed from the vessel. They screen out the inorganic items, the titanium hips we mentioned earlier, and, just like aquamation, any large bone fragments are mechanically refined or ground down and then mixed back into the pile.
And then?
Then the soil just rests in a large bin for another 30 days to stabilize and cure.
Yeah.
It lets the microbial community sort of settle down.
So all in, it's a 2 to 3 month process from start to finish.
That's right.
And the result,
Right.
what do you actually get back?
Soil. You get nutrient-rich, dark, loamy soil, about 1 cubic yard of it.
Give me a visual. How much is a cubic yard of soil?
Okay, think of the bed of a standard pickup truck filled almost to the brim, or maybe 5 or 6 large wheelbarrows full.
That's a lot of soil.
It is. And that presents a new kind of logistical question for families. What do you do with it? You can take it all home for your garden, though they recommend using it for trees or flowers, not your vegetable patch. Or you can donate it to conservation land. There are forests in Washington and California that are literally being nourished and reforested by the dead.
Talk about a legacy. That's really something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've covered the how in great detail. Let's talk about the why. Specifically, the environmental scorecard. We threw some shade at fire cremation earlier regarding carbon. How do these new methods stack up?
If we look at energy first, the difference is just stark. Aquamation uses about 1/10 of the energy of fire cremation. Human composting uses about 1/8. You are completely removing the massive natural gas consumption of the incinerator.
So a 90% reduction in energy use, roughly, and carbon footprint.
Okay, so fire cremation, as we said, puts out about 536 pounds of CO2 per body. Aquamation has 0 direct emissions from the process itself.
Right, there's no smokestack.
No smokestack. You have some electricity to run the machine to heat the water, but that's it. But human composting. That's the real winner here. It is considered carbon negative.
Carbon negative? How is that possible?
Because you aren't just avoiding the emissions of cremation, you are actively creating soil that sequesters carbon from the atmosphere. The estimate suggests that it sequesters between 0.5 to 1 metric ton of carbon per person.
So it's like your death is taking a 1,000-mile road trip off the global ledger.
That is a perfect way to put it.
However, we promise to be exhaustive, and that means looking at the counterpoints. We have a source here, The Modern Mortician, and another from Inside Climate News, that raises a pretty serious flag about contaminants.
Yes, and this is a critical part of the conversation we can't skip. Our bodies are not pristine natural objects. We are products of our environment.
We bioaccumulate things.
We bioaccumulate, exactly. Over a lifetime, we take in microplastics, heavy metals, and these forever chemicals like PFAS, not to mention pharmaceuticals, chemotherapy drugs, antibiotics, antidepressants.
So if you compost a body that has all of that in it, do those chemicals just end up in the soil?
That is the big concern. The worry is that the resulting soil essentially becomes what the industry calls biosolids, which is a nice term for treated sewage sludge. If you then spread that on the land, do those toxins enter the food chain through plants or groundwater?
And with aquamation, does it go into the water supply?
Aquamation is actually pretty good at breaking down a lot of biological drugs and viruses because of the high pH and heat. It destroys most pathogens and pharmaceuticals. But PFAS, those forever chemicals, that's much tougher. They're designed to be incredibly hard to break down.
So there's a real need for more regulation here.
Absolutely. There's a push for mandatory testing protocols for heavy metals and pharmaceuticals in the resulting soil or the effluent to ensure we aren't just recycling our own toxicity back into the earth.
It's a sobering thought that even in death, we carry the industrial footprint of our lives with us.
We do. And it highlights why the Green Death movement isn't just about the technology of the funeral. It's connected to the broader environmental health of our entire world.
Let's shift gears to the practical side, economics. Because dying is expensive. How much does it cost to go green?
It's a mixed bag, really. A traditional burial with the casket, the vault, the plot, you're looking at $7,000 to $10,000 and often much more.
Right.
Fire cremation is usually the cheapest option. It can range from as low as $800 to maybe $2,500.
Okay, so where do our new contenders fit in?
Aquamation is surprisingly competitive. It usually runs between, say, $1,295 and $3,950. The average is right around $2,500.
So slightly higher than the cheapest fire option, but very much in the same ballpark. It's an accessible price point for the middle class.
It is. Now, human composting. That is the premium option right now.
How premium?
It ranges from about $3,000 up to $7,000.
Why so much more? I mean, it's just dirt and straw, right? There's no complex machine.
It's the time and the real estate. Remember, that composting vessel is occupied for 2 to 3 months per person. A crematory turns a body over in 3 hours. A composting facility needs a huge warehouse space to hold dozens of bodies for months at a time.
Ah, so you are paying for the rental of that vessel and the active management of the biology.
It's a real estate cost, exactly.
That makes perfect sense.
Mm.
What about for the funeral homes themselves? Is it hard to set this up?
It's a significant investment, for sure. An aquamation machine can cost anywhere from $175,000 to $260,000. But the upside is that the operating costs are low. It's just water and alkali versus the volatile price of natural gas for a crematory.
And composting.
The composting vessels are cheaper individually, maybe $60,000 each.
Yeah.
But you need a lot of them to make the business viable, and you need that big warehouse space.
Despite the cost, the market is growing.
Oh, rapidly. The aquamation market alone is projected to hit $233 million by 2032. And remember that bottleneck we talked about?
The lack of crematories.
Right. Funeral homes need these machines because, in some places, they physically cannot burn bodies fast enough to keep up with the death rate. This is a solution to a real business problem.
That brings us to the rules. It's 2026. Where can I actually do this? Is it legal everywhere?
The map is filling in, but it's not universal yet. For aquamation, it is legal in roughly 29 states now, places like Maryland, Minnesota, California, Florida. Internationally, it's legal in 4 Canadian provinces and Ireland.
And we have some breaking news from the UK, right?
You do. As of March 2026, so next month, Scotland is introducing regulations to formally allow water cremation. And England and Wales are conducting a massive review of what they call new funerary methods. So Europe is catching up.
What about human composting?
That is moving a bit slower, but it's gaining huge momentum. As of early 2026, it is legal in 14 states. Washington was the pioneer back in 2019.
Right.
But significantly, New Jersey just legalized it in October of 2025. That was Bill A4085, and that law goes into full effect this July. And the interesting thing is that passed with massive bipartisan support.
That is interesting. Bipartisan support. You'd think death might be a political football, but it seems practicalities are winning out.
It does. But there's still barriers. The yuck factor is real.
Oh, wow.
Yuck factor. Public squeamishness about dissolving grandma or composting dad. It's a real hurdle for adoption. And then there is a regulatory morass. Funeral boards are historically very slow to change. We've even seen cases where wastewater treatment plants refuse to accept the aquamation effluent because they just don't understand what it is.
So education is a huge piece of this.
A massive piece.
However, there is one arena where this is definitely a battleground: culture and religion. This is where the science hits the soul. Because for many people, how we treat the dead is a theological imperative.
Absolutely. The Catholic Church, for instance, have been quite vocal on this.
They have. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops issued a statement back in 2023. What is their official stance?
They strongly oppose both aquamation and human composting. They stated that these methods fail to show proper respect for the body.
What is the specific objection? What's a theological argument?
For aquamation, they really dislike that the remains, the liquid part, are poured down the drain. They feel it treats the body like wastewater, with no specific sacred place to visit and remember the person.
I can see that. And for composting?
For composting, the objection is disintegration. They argue that the body is completely scattered into the soil, leaving nothing distinguishable to bury in a sacred place. The identity of the body is lost.
That's a powerful perspective. What about Judaism?
It's split. Orthodox Judaism is generally opposed. They have a concept called nivel hamet, which means desecration of the dead. They view the crushing of bones, which happens in both of these processes, to create the ash or finish the soil, as a violation of that principle.
But Reform Judaism has a different take.
Yes, many in the Reform movement are actually drawn to aquamation. And the reason is fascinating. For many, fire cremation has very painful historical associations with the Holocaust.
The ovens.
The ovens. Water feels gentler. It's a way to avoid that specific painful imagery.
And Islam.
Strictly prohibited. The body must be washed, shrouded, and buried whole in the earth, facing Mecca. No fire, no water, no composting.
So on one end of the spectrum, you have strict prohibition. On the other, you have the secular green perspective.
Right. And for the secular environmentalist, these technologies are almost a spiritual act in themselves. It's a viewpoint that sees the body not as a sacred vessel to be preserved, but as nutrients to be returned to the cycle of life.
We saw Martha Stewart recently announce she wants to be composted.
A true influencer, even in death.
Truly.
But there's a more touching story from our sources. Stephanie Burris, the woman in Colorado we mentioned earlier whose writing we read, she composted her son, who died young. She took the soil and used it for her houseplants.
Wow.
She said it helped her process her grief. She could look at those plants, she can water them, and she can see life coming directly from his death. It completely redefines the idea of a monument. It's not a cold stone. It's a living, growing thing in her home.
That's incredibly powerful. That leads us to the future. Because this technology isn't static, is it?
Not at all.
We are seeing things on the horizon like SDAs, specialized transformation agents. What are those?
Yeah, so those are basically additives that could be mixed into the composting piles specifically to neutralize pharmaceuticals or other toxins we were talking about earlier.
So a direct answer to the contaminant problem.
A potential one, yes. And there's also something called MMDS-managed microbial decomposition systems. Basically, high-tech sensors for composting vessels to perfectly manage temperature, oxygen, and moisture. We are moving toward precision death care.
So let's synthesize all of this. We've unpacked the science, the money, the law, and the ethics. What does this shift really mean at its core?
I think it represents a fundamental shift in our values around death. For the entire 20th century, death care was about preservation, embalming, sealed caskets. We were trying to stop the clock to keep the body looking like itself for as long as possible.
Freezing a moment in time.
Exactly. Now, we are moving toward transformation. We are accepting that we are biological matter. We are choosing to be a memory that feeds a tree rather than a body preserved inside a concrete box.
It really forces you, the listener, to ask, what do I want my physical legacy to be? Do I want to be a tiny landfill? Or do I want to be a biostimulant?
It's a heavy question. And here is a final provocative thought for you to consider. For you, the learner. We often cling to tradition because it feels right, because it's what's always been done. But if the technology now exists to turn death into life, to turn a body into soil that sequesters carbon and nourishes a forest, does sticking to toxic traditions become, in itself, a kind of moral failing?
That is something to chew on. Is your final act on this planet one of taking up space or one of giving back?
Precisely.
Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up this deep dive. We hope this conversation has given you a new perspective on, well, the inevitable. I'm host speaker.
And I'm expert speaker.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. See you next time.